tester mindset. So they're like 3 or 4 levels down in terms of the level that they're looking at, and it's trying to find a way to kind of get a gust of inspiration under them to kind of lift them to like the higher, I don't even want to say higher level, but just higher view kind of concept. Mm-hmm. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So like I was actually talking about with my sister where to me, a DM's ultimate job in the realm of role playing, not just, a lot of times, like yesterday we talked a lot about how like Dungeons and Dragons is a great way to practice empathy and trust and respect, those core human traits. So if we ignore that for a second, like basically the enlightenment level benefits to role playing games, and we look at it just from a role playing sphere, to me the DM's job is to train players and empower players to be able to play effectively and skillfully, setting up habits that allow them to tell deeper stories and to get into role playing if they so choose to. It's not about you. It's not about, oh, I DM'd well or I DM'd poorly. Yeah. It's about the interaction of you in relation to your players and your players in relation to you. It's not about you, So yeah. But now if you're training a DM, you can't start with mastery, you can't, you can't start, you have to start him as a white belt. Like a lot of these DMs, to me, and this is gonna sound arrogant, they're coming from like that green belt place where they know enough that they feel good, but they don't know what they don't know. So they're at a point where they recognize that there's a gap, or there's something to be filled. I guess gap would be the best way to put it. Yeah. But they're not skillful enough yet, or don't have a mentor or a support network enough yet that they know how to ask the right questions in order to stimulate their own growth, And I think that that's kind of what you're identifying right now. We're at this place because it's not just DMing. We're not just DMing or just playing. We're setting up people to be successful humans with this medium as the vehicle to deliver that content, right? Mm-hmm. And what's happening is there's the recognition of that kind of value, but we've tapped into something that's pretty unique in this community. Like in terms of like the wisdom tradition that we've tapped into, it's pretty freaking cool. It's pretty freaking unique, Yeah. And it's just a reminder that we have to like plug back into that green belt level to help them get to brown belt,
Right. I woke up this morning and jumped into a forum post on one of the 5th edition DM Facebook groups, and it got me thinking about how, well, we're going to podcast today, and maybe this would be a cool way to talk about this. And it was a lot of people that were frustrated with like long-time GMing and are now players, and they're noticing that they have these habits when they're playing that they feel they got from DMing, and that they're becoming the players that they don't want at their own tables. They're becoming the jerks at the table because they're jumping in with rulings, or they're like, that's not how that works, or they have to like stamp down those feelings. And I interjected a little bit with the one praising the community that we have, that it was so wonderful and enlightening to wherever the overall business went, the gaming has persisted, and to have like a team of GMs, and to have a mentorship program, and to have opportunities to, yes, I run a lot of games. I run like 6 a month, but there's also 1 or 2 that I'm in consistently. And to have those opportunities and have these discussions with other GMs with differing styles, and then to be able to play in those games and see those perspectives has been very informative, just to my own development as a human being. And I said that, my aspect of being a player, I end up listening a lot more, because yes, I could try to like run the game, but why would I? I'm the player now. That's not my job. And I try to communicate to the GMs that I'm playing with, I'm there as a resource. You know I'm there as a resource, and you'll ask me if you want me to help. But even then, it's an information, and it's not, I'm not taking over, I'm not running the game. That's not my job. But to have that mental space, I started thinking about that. I feel like there's a restructuring tier that happens, where there's like a recalibration time where you're kind of going through this disequilibrium of trying to like reconcile your GM and your player feelings that maybe at the beginning people can struggle with, especially if they disagree a lot with how the GM is running things. They're used to their own style and they're met with a style that's different, then they might have a clash there. But also I feel like a lot of that can be solved by having, and I don't know the greater context of some of these people's tables, but I feel like when we discuss a social contract, when we set out how this campaign is going to be run, or how the tone is going to work, or what are the expectations of the table, by setting all those things in place, I don't feel the need to interject because I have a greater level of trust for the GM from having that session zero. And also I'm familiar with y'all. Even the people I mentor, I'm pretty familiar with them as people, so I try to trust them before I go anywhere. And even then, if I bring up something, it'll be after the session. It's not appropriate during, unless I need to say something that would augment the experience, or like I need to say something because this thing you're ruling is about to kill a character and you don't have to do that.
Thank you so much for listening to some of our podcast highlights. This podcast is part of the Darkmoor Podcast Network. If you want to support the content creators, feel free to visit our Patreon. And please, game responsibly.